Fables of La Fontaine. The Rat and the Oyster. A rustic rat of mighty little sense, weary of home, would needs go travel thence, and quitted the paternal hearth one day to study life in places far away. At each wide prospect hitherto unscanned, he murmured, "Oh, how beautiful, how grand! Yon mount is Caucasus, begirt with pines. That range, methinks, must be the Apennines." For every molehill to his wandering eyes became a mountain of terrific size. He reached a province of the land at last, where Tethys, deity of seas, had cast some oysters on the sand, which looked at least like first-rate frigates to our simple beast. "My father is a timid soul," he said, "who fears to travel. What an empty dread! As to myself, what marvels I have seen, what scores of wonders, earthly and marine." Thus he boasted in magisterial tone, and boasted aloud, though speaking all alone. Most rats, I beg to say, are more discreet, and use their lips but when they wish to eat. Meanwhile, one oyster, a luxurious one, with shells apart, was basking in the sun. Tasting the balmy breeze, it lay agape, a fine fat morsel of seductive shape. The rat, with moistenings of the under lip, mistaking still the oyster for a ship, ran up and smelled something nice to eat, prepared straightway his grinders for a treat. "The crew," quoth he, "have left a feast on board, a cold collation, fit for any lord. If it deceive me not, I've got a prize, or else I do not know the use of eyes." So saying, Master Rat, resolving well, peered round the pearly margin of the shell. It held him fast. The oyster from his nap had woke and sharply shut his treacherous trap. All this arose from fatal ignorance of fables useful to the folks of France. Nor France alone, it shows what a surprise the simplest object strikes a booby's eyes. And notice oftentimes, for want of wit, the fool who thinks he's biting is first bit. Well, there you have it. The rat decides he wants to see the world. He travels, leaves his home. Wherever he goes, he sees normal stuff, but he's such a bumpkin. This is all new to him. He thinks it's all wonderful. Little hills become huge mountains, things like that. Eventually he comes to the seashore, sees a bunch of oysters on the beach. He's never seen an oyster before, so he mistakes them for ships. Anyway, he smells, I guess, the meat of an oyster, jumps on board. The oyster, who was asleep, getting a suntan, wakes up and snaps shut, catching the rat. All because the rat didn't do his research. He didn't understand what an oyster was, didn't know what he was getting himself into, literally and figuratively. So, what can we learn from this? Well, If you're going to do something, best do your research first. Know what you're getting yourself into before you find that because of your ignorance, you're in over your head. And yeah, I guess that's it. A little knowledge is a terrible thing. What does this mean? Learn more. Just a little bit of information sometimes isn't enough. The Dunning-Kruger effect. Dunning-Kruger effect basically explains that people who have a little bit of knowledge of a certain subject tend to overestimate their actual knowledge of the subject. And we all probably notice this sometimes when we take up a task. It seems easy. Once you study it for a while, you realize it's much more complex than you thought, that you could spend your life studying a particular subject and still only get a rudimentary knowledge of it. So, you have to respect this, or else you might meet with tragedy, depending on what the subject matter is. So basically, try not to be overconfident, try to respect things that you don't fully understand, and do your research. If you have anything you'd like to add or comment on down below, please. Till next time.